Welcome to the GTN show. On today's show, we review all the action and drama that happened at the Leeds WTCS race over the weekend and all the other races around the world.
Yeah, and we'll be showcasing some new tech, including some specific women's tech, some triathlon tech, and even some gravel tech.
Yep. Plus, we have a discussion about swim safety in triathlons. So, let's get started.
All right, kicking the show off this week, we are going to start with React. So all the things that we've seen on social media this past week, well, not all the things, that'd be a bit boring, but some of the interesting things. Starting with Leeds WTCS this weekend a really bad crash, unfortunately, which took out Alex Yee and Johnny Brownlee from the race. And here is Johnny Brownlee in hospital with his arm in a sling, and unfortunately, sounds like he's broken his elbow. Here's what he said. He said, "Ouch, not how I thought the weekend was going to go. Another athlete crashed in front of me and I had nowhere to go. Hit the ground hard and broke my elbow. At least it isn't a long journey home," because he is in Leeds. "Sorry to let the amazing Leeds crowd down. Thank you for your support once again." And he goes on to say, "I know these things happen in sport, but the racing is definitely getting more dangerous and it is down to a select few athletes. We need to look after each other better back home for some TLC." And well, if he plans on racing in the Commonwealth Games, which are only at the end of July, he's going to need a super quick recovery from this.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know really. His broken elbow could mean a lot of things. Yeah. It could just be a tiny chip on the bone. He could be back fairly quickly, or it could be, cast for 6 weeks. We don't really know at this point. But yeah, some strong, maybe controversial words there from him. Obviously, immediately after you've had a crash like that, there's a lot of adrenaline flowing. Some stern words for his fellow competitors, and one of those competitors who was actually involved in that crash went on to win. We will go through the whole race results later on, but for now, we did have a reaction from the winner of the race, Hayden Wild, who was involved in that accident apparently. He said his victory was bittersweet. He told the BBC, "It's my first win, I'm pretty stoked, but I was part of that collision and it was probably my fault," he says. He said, "I want to really apologise to Johnny Brownlee and Alex Yee and my teammate who I collided with, who was Dylan McCulloch. Apparently those were the four involved in the accident. 3 of them were taken out of the race and 1 of them went on to win it." So
he did well to stay on his bike.
He did well to stay on his bike. We're not really sure what happened. It wasn't caught on camera. It wasn't on the camera on race day, so we don't really know what happened. We just knew that suddenly Alex and Johnny were not in the race. He said, "I know that Johnny was pretty mad and he gave me some words, but that's fair enough. I'm gutted for those guys. It was totally my fault. I'm more than happy to own up to that and I feel really bad." Obviously for him, it's not such an issue because he did go on to win the race, and obviously for Johnny it's a lot more hurtful, but these are part of racing. These are draft legal bike races. You've got a lot of bikes going around, very sharp corners, very close together. Things are going to happen. I think Johnny will probably wake up today feeling a little bit more kind of philanthropic about it and a little bit more generous to his fellow racers. He definitely wasn't used to it.
But I do agree that, some people do perhaps race more emotionally and aggressive, and there is a time and place for that. And if you are going to, you're not sabotage other people's races, but put their health and danger, risk and everything with that. But it's nice, obviously, that Hayden is reflecting on that, and obviously very apologetic. Another thing we spotted on social media was that Sarah Svensk has broken the Sacalobra KOM in Mallorca. Well, she does say in her post here, "In training, I'm known for having a stone face and usually can't tell when I'm hurting, but going sub 30 and earning the crowd on Sacalobra even got me twitching a little bit." Obviously, a lot of congratulations to her. However, I have explored this one and her Strava file's been flagged. So I'm not sure what's gone on there. We're not going to speculate, but the QOM, sorry, not the KOM, the QOM, Queen of the Mountain, isn't hers at the moment.
Still up for dispute. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's quite a famous climb, and a lot of people have gone for that QOM and KOM. It would be quite a crown for a triathlete to have that. But yeah, flagged at the moment.
Someone did actually also, just to point out, someone did message us the other week and say, a triathlete's taken the QOM, and they were referring to a different QOM that actually goes all the way from the bottom. I know Sakalobra quite well. Goes from the cafe at the bottom, which isn't the official one, just to point out. So if you are going to go on Strava and have a bit of a geek out and try and find this one, it's the Col de Reese or whatever, the official one. And that's the one that Sarah went for.
Anyway, we'll have more information on actual races later on in the show. Okay, now it's time for your tri news, and starting with good news. Jan Frodeno plans to return to racing. This is after he pulled out of the Ironman World Championships in the last few weeks leading up to it with an Achilles injury. He has now announced that he plans to race Challenge Roth at the beginning of July, which is great news. He actually set the iron distance world record there in 2016, so he's no stranger to it. He does say in his press release that it is dependent on his Achilles, but clearly it's not 100% yet, and he does leave the option open of potentially pulling out on the run if his Achilles is not 100%, it's not worth the risk. But he says, I do have to be careful, but there's just so much gravitas to Roth that I'm really looking forward to it. I think if he's even in decent shape, he's going to give those guys a run for their money. It actually means that all of the previous Ironman World Champions from Germany that are currently racing will be racing Roth this year.
Yeah, that's super cool,
So
isn't it?
Pretty cool start list. And Sam Long is also.
Sounds like also he's getting rather impatient of just doing aqua jogging. I think he says, been hell of a past few months and I'm just getting a little tired of aqua jogging.
I can imagine. It doesn't take long to get tired of aqua jogging, about 20 minutes by my count.
Also, well, a couple of weeks back, we also had the Stockholm Marathon and the leaders got sent off course. Now, apparently, they followed the police bike that was sort of guiding them through the course and clearing the course ahead of them. And took them, the news article says it took them 1 kilometre off course, but they ran a minute in the wrong direction. So that would mean that they ran for 2 minutes for 1 kilometre. Doesn't really add up to me.
No, but they did lose some time, clearly. And one of the guys who actually went the wrong way came back onto the course and ended up taking the win. Kirua, who was 26, he did win it in a time of 2 hours 11 and 7 minutes, and he was only 1 minute off the course record. So that's a bit frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, very frustrating. Also, someone else that got rather close to a record was Canadian marathoner Lucas McKenney, who tried to break the Guinness World Record for a marathon whilst pushing a stroller with a child in it. Yeah,
he had his 2-year-old son in it, and he won the marathon overall in Buffalo in New York, but he missed that world record time, which is still held by Callum Neff of 2 hours 31 and 21. He finished in 2 hours 33 and 29 seconds.
Which is very impressive.
Pretty close to that, and that's a pretty fast run pushing a stroller with a 2-year-old in it.
I would love to have seen that.
He should probably have done it a year ago when his kid was only 1. It would have been a lot lighter.
Well, yeah, true. I mean, imagine I think the second place finish was literally just 20 seconds behind. Imagine sprinting down the finish line, seeing a chap pushing their stroller across in front of you, taking the tape. Oh, man. I'm not planning to do that anytime soon. No, thank you. Anyway, we did have some bad news on the weekend, and that was that a participant at Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire here in the UK did die during the swim, which is devastating news, and it's not that rare, unfortunately. We hear about this quite regularly, and got Mark and I discussing it. So we're going to dig into a little bit why this happens so much in triathlon, and also what can be done about it. Now, as James says, this is obviously very sad news, so our condolences do go out to the athlete's family. A couple of stats here. From 1985 to 2016, 135 triathletes in the US have died during triathlons, 90 of which happened during the swim. Yeah, it does feel like you get a new one every weekend. There are a lot of events happening around the world every weekend, and you're going to see some prevalence of, sudden cardiac arrest. It happens in all sports, but it does seem like a lot happen in the swim in a triathlon. And is that just because in the swim you notice it? I mean, if you were on the bike or the run, you would fall over, get medical attention almost immediately, whereas in the swim, you've got about 60 seconds before it doesn't matter what caused it. And we have heard of cases where people have actually sadly bumped into someone that's having difficulty face down, and they've in some cases saved them, rolled them over, and that's great news, but it's not always that. So I guess the question is it the swim that's causing this, or is it just the fact that it's happening all over the place, but in the swim in particular it becomes fatal?
And it has turned out that most of these swimmers that have died in an Ironman are due to sudden cardiac arrest or a sudden cardiac complication during the postmortem. Obviously, that's what they've figured out. So there must be something going on here. It's a little bit too prevalent in the swim, as we see on that stat, mostly in the swim. Now, we're not doctors,
no.
But we will tell you there is no medical certainty on what is causing this. So we're not doctors, we're not giving you any advice. We're just looking at the facts and the research around this and presenting it to you. Obviously, speak to your doctor before you do a triathlon would be the first bit of advice, and we'll get to that in a minute too, because that's also an interesting point. But another thing that this research found was that the distance doesn't actually matter. Now, you would think that the longer it is, when you're getting up to 3.8k swims, it's more prevalent. But actually, it's not more prevalent in the swim of a sprint distance or an Ironman. It's roughly, there's no statistical significance in the distance that you do. It's literally just the triathlon that is causing it. So there are two possibilities here that are causing this.
Yeah, so one could obviously be an undiagnosed heart condition or issue, or perhaps a previous heart issue that has come back to be an issue, or it could be cold water shock.
Yeah, cold water shock is an interesting one because it's essentially a miscommunication in your body, or basically two things happening at the same time. Firstly, you go into cold water and your body immediately, you get this adrenaline rush, your heart rate rises, your breathing rate rises, that hyperventilation you get when you go into really cold water all of a sudden. But at the same time, humans have this diving response, which is when you put your head underwater, you automatically slow down your breathing and slow down your heart rate. And you have these contradicting autonomic systems that happen at the same time in your body, and this can cause stress on your heart, stress on your whole system. And when it does, that could lead to these heart conditions, or an underlying heart condition manifesting itself that you didn't know about. Just that extra stress can cause this problem.
And then also add to that, you've got the close proximity to other swimmers, the waves and whatever else, and you've kind of got the perfect storm.
Yeah, it could just be that triathlon is the perfect storm. It's all of these things. You've got a sector of society that is middle-aged, looking for improving their health, so they maybe already are conscious of their health, throwing them into a stressful situation, and they're in the water, and it's cold, all of this together. Yeah, it might be the perfect storm.
So what should you do prior to entering a triathlon? Well, what everyone says to do, go get tested. Go see your GP.
That is what you get, yeah. Except that doesn't really work, does it, Mark? Because if I, as a healthy middle-aged man, go into my doctor and say, I'm at the upper end of fitness and I'm at the upper ranges of activity level, I have no underlying symptoms, I'm not obese, I don't have any risk factors whatsoever, please test me. Chances are they'll go, listen, we're busy with people who are actually sick, I think you need to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I can guarantee that's what my GP or doctor would say to me. So yeah, I've often heard that and thought, well, how would I go back?
Yeah, the other thing is also, it's not just a 10-minute listen to your heart with a stethoscope and take your blood pressure and go, now you're fine. You can go do an Ironman. To actually find any statistical significance of a risk factor that might manifest itself as an Ironman, you actually have to do a stress ECG, which means you need to do on a bike, get the electrodes on your chest, and you have to go through a whole range of protocols to see whether your heart is reacting and whether there's any risk factors there, which, let's face it, that's just not practical. So what practically can you do?
Well, first, of course, would be being in tune with yourself and knowing how you feel. Like if you are feeling a little bit under the weather, not feeling that well, then you possibly should consider whether you should race or not. Now, we were discussing this prior to the show, and I feel like the issue here is that a lot of people have committed to it. There's a bit of kudos with that, and then also there's the fact that you've paid a lot of money to enter some of these events. You feel like I don't want to do this.
It's a big investment of time, of money, of energy, all of this stuff. And then on race week, you have a bit of a sniffle, you have a bit of a cough, and you think, I'm not throwing this all away for a little sniffle or cough, which might turn out to be nothing. But you're also potentially taking a big risk by competing with this.
But big no-nos are if you are feeling any chest pain, you've got heart palpitations, or actually feeling some sort of performance loss prior to the event, or even in the early stages, it's probably a good idea to call it a day.
Yeah, so be vigilant for those heart-related warning signs. And then also get used to open water swimming before race day. This is quite a big one because a lot of people experience open water for the first time on race day because they just don't have access to it, or it's too much of a schlep to go and find an open water venue where they can train in. But it does make a big difference to get used to open water before you get there. There's a lot of factors that you're going to deal with on race day. You don't want open water to be a new one to you.
And then, of course, get used to the water and get in the water and warm up in it on race day if you can. Now, the reason we say if you can is because you're not always being given or are able to get into the open water on race day. So at the very least, we suggest even just getting down to the water and just splashing some in your face so it just sort of gets used to the cold water.
Yeah, and doing a decent warm-up before you start. And one final thing we will say, because we have to say it, and we have covered this already, but get screened. If you are starting a new exercise routine or a new regimen, or you're planning to do a big race that you've never done before, it is worth your while to get screened. They can pick up these things earlier than maybe before you're in the swim of a triathlon. So get screened if you do have risk factors.
Right now for What the Tech, and there is a fit revolution happening over at Nike in their goal to serve a broader range of body types, and specifically focusing on leggings and bras. And they have now got 3 bra families, the Elate, Indie and Swoosh, now available in light, medium and high support, and now with more than 70 cup sizes and options to choose from. But the really cool thing here is that they've scanned thousands and thousands of women to essentially get these 3D body maps of women so they can better understand how to fit the bras better. And they've built some robots.
Yeah.
So
what's going on in the basement of Nike?
they've built an actual sweating robot called Haley and a proprietary bra bot that mimics the soft tissue of breasts and essentially allows them to form these bras. And
we'll spare you any of our jokes on that one. Also, Under Armour has also gone with some women-specific stuff, and that's women-specific shoes. So they've released the Under Armour Flow Synchronicity, which is a new running shoe designed by women for women. And rather than just shrinking the men's shoe last, and that generally lacks flexibility that the women need, they've created a whole new one by scanning a whole bunch of women's feet, much like Nike have done with women's bodies, and they have created a new last that has more flexibility, better fit and better arch support for a woman's foot. And we've seen quite a lot of this recently.
Yes, we've had Puma have just launched their, what's the name of it? It's the Run XX Nitro. Adidas have done it, Lululemon, obviously Nike as well already. Yeah. So
I do like it. I think it's a good progress in the world for women, especially if you've worn women's specific shoes and noticed a difference. We'd love to hear about that in the comment section down below. We're not 100% convinced that not all of these companies are just jumping on the bandwagon trying to get the women's money, but if it is making a difference, that's awesome. I like the tagline by Puma, we're done with the shrink it and pink it, which
nice.
Cool. As they should be.
Yeah. Also exciting bit of tech news, Apple is stepping into the triathlon world. So if you have an Apple smartwatch, you could be able to triathlon with it. Yeah, they've just announced that the Watch OS 9 will feature a triathlon function or multi-sport function within it. Not only that, it actually gets quite technical. They are able to analyze your swimming, your SWOLF scores, so looking at your stroke count, rate, efficiency, etc., as well as detect what stroke you're doing, and of course the distance and everything with it. So it's more than just like a very basic sports watch. They're actually going a step further than we imagined.
Pretty advanced. Triathlon's hitting the mainstream in tech. Yeah. Also, Strava has taken things off-road. Like everyone else, they've put on the bumpy tyres and slightly wider tyres, and they're going gravel. Yeah, they've added some new activity types in their latest release and latest update, including gravel riding, mountain biking, e-mountain biking, and trail running. And you can also improve your trail route finding, so it'll also give you a difficulty rating on the trail, and you can plan better and also analyze better afterwards when you're going off-road, which is a cool new feature, and I think something that a lot of people are going to be using as more and more people go off-road, both trail running and riding.
Very cool. We also have a giveaway. Yes, it's giveaway time for one of 2 Form goggles. And Form goggles are the augmented reality display goggles, so you literally, within the lens of the goggles, can see all sorts of great metrics, your stroke count, rate, pace, distance, time, workouts, which is really cool. So actually, as part of this giveaway, we're giving you an annual subscription to Form. So with the goggles, you'll also get access to all these structured workouts, which you'll be able to see in real time whilst you're swimming, which is really cool. Oh, and a swim cap, of course.
And a swim cap, of course. Yeah, you did actually see these in our sub-7, sub-8 behind the scenes. The guys there were using these goggles to pace themselves and pace their workouts and also pace their race for the sub-7, sub-8, because you can see your pace live. We have 2 of these to give away, and what do I have to do, Mark?
They just need to click on the link in the description down below, and that is it. Best of luck to you. 2 up for grabs.
All right, on to your race news, and there was some drama over the weekend, as we mentioned earlier. WTCS Leeds happened this weekend, and both of the races had a substantial amount of drama. First, we had the men's, and well, it didn't take long for the drama to start there. The favourites, Johnny Brownlee and Alexi, who are their home race, just suddenly disappeared off the time map. No one knew what had happened, where they were. There was no footage of it or anything, but as we've already said, they crashed out, including New Zealander Dylan McCulloch there. So they were out. Gustav Eden was also someone we were watching, and he was just nowhere.
We don't know really what happened. His swim was very off pace, but looked like he was in touch with the bike pack. But there are shots of him riding solo. His bike was very slow considering, and yeah, he was just out of it. So yet to hear what went on there.
No, and Vincent Louis and Leo Berger did get a big lead, and Vincent Louis, he actually said after the race that as few as 10 days before this race, he was actually thinking, you know what, my career might be over, I might not be able to come back, I'm just feeling awful. Well, he was back with a bang, and unfortunately that bang ended in some railings. He actually miscounted his laps on the bike. He was in the lead with Leo Berger. Together they had a good lead on the rest of the pack, and he just came flying through T2 instead of jumping off at the dismount line. He just carried on as if he had another lap, and it's a downhill T2, so he was flying. He locked up the back brake as soon as he saw the fences were there to take you onto the run course, and he just went straight into those fences.
Good skills though. He instantly got himself right back, so he gets as much traction as possible on that.
I mean, if you're going to crash, that's how you want to do it.
Yeah, but obviously he did get a 10-second penalty. He still finished within the top 10, but obviously not the result he was hoping for. And we saw some incredible running from everyone there, but Martin van Riel coming across the finish line, well, apparently there are some sort of like rivets or holes underneath the carpet.
It's a very brutal finish because it's like a downhill sprint.
Downhill, they're coming in, or legs flying everywhere, and he clearly just got his foot down one of these gaps and just stumbled and apparently dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah, he put his shoulder down like this, and he landed on it and looked like it looked like his arm was just hanging limp. Anyway, as we've said earlier, Hayden Wild did take the win there. He outran everybody quite substantially. He caught up to Leo Berger, who had quite a substantial lead. Leo Berger held on for second. Lasse Leurs had a sprint finish with Vasco Veloza for third place to get the last spot on the podium. But the drama wasn't done for the day because the women's race was still to come, and there was some drama there too.
Yeah, well, just to start off, I mean, we had Sophie Caldwell and Taylor Spivey breaking away on the bike and getting a small gap into T2. But it was Cassandra Beaugrand that really stole the show. Now, she actually put a slight foot wrong, literally, and got a 10-second penalty herself.
Yeah, she mounted the bike just a little bit too early. Your foot has to touch the ground after the mount line to avoid a penalty, and she was already flying onto her bike when she went over that mount line. So she got a 10-second penalty, but she was able to run down Taylor Spivey and Sophie Caldwell and then run another 16 seconds or so into them with Georgia Taylor-Brown coming up from behind. So she served a 10-second penalty and then got running again while she was still in the lead. So she took that win there ahead of Georgia Taylor-Brown, who ran up to second place, and Sophie Caldwell held on to the podium in a very impressive display there by the British woman.
Yeah, and then this following day on the Sunday, we had the mixed team relay, which unfortunately, obviously, we had a couple of members of the GB team missing, Alex Yee and Johnny Brownlee. However, Great Britain did hang on for second, with Germany taking the win there and France in third.
Yeah, also on the weekend we had Challenge Geraardsbergen in Netherlands, and it went up the famous Le Mur from the Tour of Flanders, which is over a kilometre long and over 10% and cobbled, and they went up it twice. Anthony Costes won there over Peter Hermerich on the men's side, and on the women's side Didier Diedrichs, also from the Netherlands, won that one.
We also had Ironman Des Moines, the North American Championships, which was won by Matt Hansen, which Wow, he put in an absolute blistering bike time, a time of 4:09, substantially faster than everyone else in the field, to take the win there and overcome a slightly below par swim ahead of Andre Lopez and Tim O'Donnell. And then also on the women's side, we had Sky Munch absolutely dominating the women's field with a gap of over 20 minutes on second place, which was Jenna Nett, and in third it was Kelly Filner.
Yeah, but the North American Ironman champs were not the only continental champs happening. There was also the Asia Pacific continental champs happening in Cairns, and there Max Newman from Australia made it 3 in a row. He's a good hunting ground for him. He was ahead of Braden Curry, who was also second at the Ironman World Champs recently, with Sam Appleton rounding out the podium there. On the women's side, Sarah Crowley won it by a country mile. She was very comfortable the whole day, it looked like. She led out the swim and pretty much led the rest of the way. Radka Carlefelt was in second and Kylie Simpson in third.
Awesome. What about Pete Jacobs?
Pete Jacobs didn't go so well. Yeah, we were hoping Pete Jacobs was going to make his dramatic comeback and maybe get a slot for Kona. Unfortunately, he said he swam with the leaders, as you would expect Pete Jacobs to do, and then with about 50 k's into the bike, he realised that he was just not going to be able to hold this kind of power. And he blew up. He said he blew up on the 50 k's into the bike, and he blew up again on the run, so he crawled it in. He did finish though, so congrats to him for finishing.
Nice one. We've got a lot of results this week. We also have Ironman 70.3 Eagleman. That was won by Cody Beals, and in second we had Justin Metzler, and third Andy Potts. And on the women's side, Sarah Trues. Great to see her back, winning ahead of Tamara Jewett, and third was Sophie Watts.
Yeah, we also had the ITU Cross Duathlon World Champs. The winner there, Thibaut de Smet from Belgium, and Eleonora Perozzini from Italy winning the women's.
Yeah, we also had the Cross Tri World Champs, also in the same venue, just a couple of days apart, and that was won by Arthur Sierras on the men's side and Sandra Meerhoff on the women's.
And there was more off-road racing at Xterra Belgium, and that was won by Arthur Sierras of France, and in the women's side it was won by Marta Mendito of Italy.
There's a lot of racing there from Arthur Sierras then, because he raced both of those, maybe even the duathlon as well. Good going. The next Xterra race we have is the big one, Xterra France. It's an iconic one on the 3rd of July. But this coming weekend, we have Ironman 70.3 Luxembourg, which is a women's pro race, Ironman 70.3 Switzerland, which is a male pro race, and we've also got Challenge Wales and also Challenge Gdansk.
Yeah, lots of racing. Okay, now it's time to look at some of the stuff that you guys have sent in to us. Remember, you can use the uploader on screen now or in the link down below to send us any of your triathlon related images or photos or videos, anything you want, like anything about triathlon. We'd love to feature it on the show. So this week, starting with this one from Gina on her Giant TCR Advanced Pro, and she's in Cairo in Egypt. She says, just returned from our first Europeans as an age grouper and back to training on the Sokna Highway. Cycling in Cairo is impossible except on this road on a Friday morning. Well, must be busy on a Friday morning then.
Must also be pretty hot on Strava with the segments. I'm sure they're pretty highly challenged.
It's the only place you can ride. Yeah, it was 27 degrees at 6 a.m. and 33 degrees 2.5 hours later when I finished. Looks like a hot and brutal place to train.
Whoa, that is brutal. Next in from Sean from the Chattanooga 70.3 says, I swam my first ever lap in October 29th, 2021 and just completed my first ever triathlon May the 22nd at the Chattanooga 70.3 with a 36:31 1.4 mile swim.
1.4 miles? Is it supposed to be 1.2 miles?
Yeah, he
clearly needs to work on his direction a little bit, yeah. But well done anyway for getting your swim up there so quickly. And then finally we have this one from Ben on his Giant Advanced Pro in Lewes, Sussex. He says, leaving work and off for a training ride, deciding which route to take. Left into the sun or right into the murk. Luckily home is to the west, so sun it is, west is best.
Yes it is.
It is that day for sure.
Yeah. Well, do keep your photos coming using that photo uploader, as James said. Links on screen right now. You find it in the description down below. All right, now for the caption competition. Last week we had this photo from the Otolo Scilly Isles, where I can confirm that it's a lot of seaweed and kelp. We had lots of great captions coming in.
Yep, starting with this one from Andy Taylor, and he says, hold up, you dropped your toupee.
Whee. Coach Sala Louis, look, electrolytes and nutrition all in one.
In a similar vein, Roger C says, I'm a vegan. I want my nutrition all raw, plant-based and from nature.
Me. Next one from Jabansky. Someone tell Billy Ray Cyrus that 1992 called and they want their mullet back.
Oh, what was it doing in the ocean? And Vela David says, Barry, I thought you promised me this was Kelp Man, not Kelp Man.
But our winner is Max Secchi. Kelp, I need somebody. Kelp, not just anybody.
I mean, good singing.
Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant. Well done, Max. Get hold of us and we'll get a bottle out to you. This week we have this one from 17.3 Staffordshire. I'm going to say that guy in the front is saying, even the jester suit doesn't look as ridiculous as this tri-suit.
Good stuff. Well, do your best. Get involved in the comment section down below with your captions. But that is it for the show this week. We do have loads coming up, including Heather racing a horse, well, loads of horses actually, in Man v Horse, an event that's been taking place since the 1918s, and only 3 men have ever actually beaten the horse riders. It's a really cool event. Yeah, so Heather got involved in that. And also, James and I getting stuck into some swimming through waves.
Yeah, that was fun in the wave.
Really cool.
The wave, yeah. Don't forget to head over to the shop for all the GTN merchandise, including the shirt that I'm wearing right now. And like and subscribe to this video for more GTN content. And if you're looking for something to watch right now, we did a behind the scenes of the Sub 7, Sub 8, looking at all the stuff that happened behind that epic event, and also a video on how to improve your freestyle kick if you're struggling with that.